Why do people get attached to the ones who hurt them? Why do they stay, even when the pattern is obvious, even when the pain is real, even when every part of their life begins to suffer because of it? Most people think the answer is weakness, poor judgment, low standards, desperation. But that is not the real answer. Because toxic attachment is rarely about the person alone. It is about what that person activates inside you. Sometimes it is not love. It is recognition. Your body recognizes the unpredictability. Your mind recognizes the chase. Your nervous system recognizes the tension, and what feels familiar can feel like home, even when it is hurting you. This is why people stay attached to relationships that drain them. Why they replay moments that should have been enough to walk away. Why they hold on to almost love and call it destiny. This video is not about blaming people for what they stayed in. It is about understanding what was happening underneath it. Because once you understand the pattern, you stop romanticizing the pain. And once you stop romanticizing the pain, healing begins. Welcome to the Why narrative. This is where we uncover what happened, why it happened, what it reveals about us, and how you can use that understanding to grow, heal, and move through life with greater clarity. Today, we go into one of the deepest patterns in human behavior: why people get attached to people who hurt them. Painful attachment can feel like love because intensity is easy to confuse with intimacy. When someone is inconsistent, emotionally distant, unpredictable, or hard to reach, the emotional highs and lows create a powerful cycle. The mind starts chasing relief. The heart starts chasing certainty. The body starts craving the next moment of closeness. And that cycle can feel overwhelming. A message feels bigger than it should. A moment of warmth feels more meaningful than it really is. A brief apology feels like hope. A small sign of affection feels like proof that things can still become what you wanted them to be. This is one of the traps. Because healthy love usually feels steady, clear, grounded, available. But to a wounded system, steady can feel boring, and inconsistency can feel magnetic. That is why people start calling anxiety connection. They start calling emotional confusion chemistry. They start calling survival love. Not because they are foolish, because their nervous system is responding to something deeper than logic. The painful truth is that sometimes a person does not fall in love with who someone is. They fall in love with the emotional pattern the relationship creates, the waiting, the hope, the relief, the longing, the hunger to finally feel chosen. That pattern becomes the attachment. And until that is understood, people will keep trying to heal the pain by chasing more of what created it. Most painful attachment patterns do not begin in adulthood. They begin much earlier. Many people who become deeply attached to people who hurt them learned early that love was not always steady. Maybe affection was inconsistent. Maybe safety was mixed with tension. Maybe approval had to be earned. Maybe connection came with silence, confusion, emotional distance, or sudden withdrawal. When this happens, the nervous system adapts. A child becomes hyper-aware. They learn to read moods. They learn to track emotional shifts. They learn to earn warmth. They learn that closeness can disappear without warning. This matters later, because when someone enters their adult life with the same emotional inconsistency, it does not always feel foreign. It feels familiar, not safe. Familiar. And the body often chooses familiarity over peace. This is where many people get stuck. They think they are making a romantic decision, but underneath, an older emotional memory is being activated. Some part of them is trying to solve an old wound through a new person, trying to finally be chosen, trying to finally be enough, trying to finally receive the love that once felt unstable. This is why knowledge alone is not enough. A person can know the relationship is hurting them and still struggle to leave. Because the wound is not just in the mind, it is in the body, in expectation, in pattern, in identity. And when the pattern feels old, the attachment feels deep. The nervous system does not choose what is healthy, it chooses what is known. This is one of the hardest truths for people to accept. If chaos, inconsistency, emotional unpredictability, or tension were normal in the past, then calm can feel unfamiliar, and unfamiliar can feel unsafe. That is why some people feel deeply restless in healthy relationships. No emotional chase, no anxiety, no dramatic highs and lows, no constant guessing. It feels too still. But when they enter a relationship with mixed signals, emotional confusion, and instability, their system wakes up. Not because it is love, because it is activated. The body becomes alert. The mind becomes preoccupied. The heart becomes obsessed with repair, clarity, and relief. This is what makes toxic attachment so powerful. The relationship does not simply create pain, it creates stimulation. And for a wounded system, stimulation can feel more convincing than peace. This is also why people struggle when others tell them, just leave. Because from the outside, the situation looks obvious. But from the inside, the attachment feels physical. The nervous system is not just grieving a person. It is reacting to the loss of a pattern it learned to organize itself around. That is why healing is not just about setting a boundary. It is about teaching the body that calm is not danger, that steadiness is not emptiness, that peace is not loss. And that takes real work. People often ask, if it hurts so much, why stay? The answer is rarely simple. Sometimes people stay because they still hope. Sometimes they stay because the relationship has become tied to their identity. Sometimes they stay because the moments of closeness feel like proof that change is still possible. And sometimes they stay because leaving feels worse than the pain. When someone is trapped in an attachment wound, they are not only attached to the person, they are attached to the possibility. The possibility that one day the love will become stable. The possibility that one day they will be fully chosen. The possibility that everything they endured will finally make sense. This is how people get bonded to what hurts them. They do not stay only for what is real. They stay for what they imagine could still happen. And imagination becomes a powerful drug when reality is painful. A brief moment of affection can reset the whole cycle. The mind says maybe this is the turning point. Maybe now things will be different. Maybe now the love will come back in full. But in many toxic attachments, the pattern is the point. Inconsistency keeps the emotional bond alive. It creates chasing, waiting, yearning, interpreting, longing. And the person who is attached starts investing more and more of themselves just to keep the possibility alive. That is why staying is not always about love. Sometimes it is about the unbearable pain of letting go of the hope. False hope is one of the deepest reasons people remain attached to painful relationships. False hope says, they will change. They really love me underneath it all. They are just wounded. If I love them enough, they will become who I know they can be. This hope feels noble, compassionate, loyal, but often it becomes a prison. Because instead of responding to what the relationship actually is, a person starts living inside what the relationship could be, and the more emotionally invested they become, the harder it is to accept the truth. They are no longer in love with reality. They are in love with potential. That distinction matters. Potential can keep people attached for years. It can make them tolerate emotional neglect, confusion, betrayal, and repeated disappointment, not because they enjoy suffering, because they are emotionally bonded to the future they keep imagining. But healing begins when a person asks a brutal question: am I attached to this person, or am I attached to the version of them I keep hoping will finally arrive? That question changes everything, because false hope feeds attachment. Truth begins to break it. One of the deepest costs of toxic attachment is self-abandonment. At first, it may look small. You silence your discomfort. You ignore your intuition. You explain away what hurts you. You adjust more than you should. You accept less than you need. But over time, this becomes bigger. You stop asking what you feel. You stop asking what you need. You stop asking what is healthy. The focus becomes the relationship, keeping it, saving it, fixing it, making sense of it, and slowly you disappear inside the attachment. This is the hidden identity loss that comes with painful love. The person begins organizing their emotions around someone else's inconsistency. Their mood changes with the relationship. Their worth rises and falls with the attention they receive. Their sense of self gets handed over to the bond. That is why toxic attachment is not just painful. It is disorienting. The person no longer knows where they end, and the wound begins. And that is why healing must eventually include identity work. Because the goal is not only to stop loving someone who hurt you, the goal is to remember yourself again. For many people, letting go of a painful attachment does not feel like peace. It feels like withdrawal. This confuses them. They think, if this relationship was so unhealthy, why does leaving feel unbearable? Because emotional attachment can behave like dependency. The body gets used to the cycle, the anxiety, the hope, the chase, the relief, the pain, the reunion. And when that cycle is interrupted, the body reacts. Restlessness, craving, rumination, obsessive thinking, grief, the urge to check, the urge to return, the urge to reopen the wound just to stop feeling the emptiness. This is why people go back. Not because the relationship became healthy, because the nervous system is still adjusting to the loss of the pattern. That is why healing requires more than insight. It requires regulation, distance, support, boundaries, new patterns, and time. People often think closure from the other person will heal them, but many times closure becomes another attempt to stay emotionally connected. The real healing begins when a person stops asking the wound to explain itself and starts building a life that no longer depends on it. Healing from painful attachment is not instant. It begins with truth. Truth about what happened. Truth about what you tolerated. Truth about what you kept hoping for. Truth about what the relationship awakened inside you. From there, healing becomes a process of returning to yourself. You stop calling chaos love. You stop calling anxiety chemistry. You stop calling emotional starvation passion. You begin learning what healthy connection actually feels like. Clear, steady, mutual, respectful, emotionally available. You also begin noticing the parts of yourself that were built around survival. The part that chases, the part that fears being abandoned, the part that needs to be chosen to feel worthy, the part that thinks love must be earned through suffering. These parts do not need shame. They need understanding. They need safety. They need a new experience. Healing means building a relationship with yourself strong enough that you no longer negotiate your worth for temporary closeness. It means choosing peace before intensity, reality before fantasy, clarity before confusion, truth before hope that keeps you trapped. And eventually, something shifts. You stop craving the person because you start seeing the pattern. And once you truly see the pattern, it loses its romance. The deepest lesson is this: people do not always get attached because someone is special. They get attached because that person activated something unfinished inside them. An old wound, an old hunger, an old fear, an old hope. And until that wound is understood, pain can keep disguising itself as love. But the moment you stop asking, why do they do this, and start asking, why does this pattern feel so powerful to me, your healing changes direction. You stop making the relationship the whole story. You start understanding the deeper one. That is where freedom begins. Not when the other person finally changes. Not when they finally choose you. Not when they finally explain themselves. Freedom begins when you stop negotiating your worth with pain. This is the why narrative. We do not stop at what happened. We uncover why it happened. If this spoke to you, stay with the channel. There is more to uncover, more patterns to understand, more truths to face, and more healing ahead.